So we're going to talk about meeting difficult emotions, and also what I feel is the necessity of personal honesty around that topic. I'll just start off and sort of get the ball rolling here and see where we go. But so for just use an example. The ego can be, and the mind can be, kind of a little shapeshifter, and it pretends to be, very often it pretends to be something it's not. So, no, I'm a good person. Meanwhile, I cut off 3 people when I was driving, and walked by some poor homeless guy who was starving, and but I get home and I think, no, I'm a good person. That sort of thing. We fool ourselves into all kinds of things to the ego to make itself feel better. And a point I like to make, and I read Adyashanti talked about this once, just beautiful talk about honesty. And what he was referring to is personal honesty, not honesty that honesty that you would be with your beloved or with a friend. Internal honesty, like, if something arises in me, so let's say envy. Let's say I'm envious of you for something, whatever. You beat me in tennis and I'm envious of you for beating me in tennis or something. There can be, if you want to turn your attention inwards and become aware of what's happening internally, then it's important to not reject anything, even an uncomfortable emotion. So let's say envy. And it doesn't mean that I have to go act out on it and make some drama in the world. Not at all. But what it means is for me to see it for what it is, and to not call it anything else or hide from it. Like, oh, wow, look at that. Okay, yeah, I might be even surprised. Like, oh, wow, I never thought myself to be someone who had envy, but wow, there's envy. Okay. And just let it be there. Or it could be sadness, or it could be anger. It's usually the so-called negative emotions that we've been conditioned through our family or upbringing somewhere. Could be a religion that we belong to, that it's not good to feel certain emotions. Sexual. Maybe you've been brought up in a family where that's not okay, or your religion, that's not okay. So any kind of emotion or feeling, I think it's, anytime we're rejecting some part of us, what we're doing actually, as soon as we reject it and don't look at it, we're actually creating our own unconscious. We're actually taking that experience and shoving it away, and we're hiding it from our own vision. We're creating our unconscious. So nobody else creates our unconscious, we do. And we want to actually reverse that process. And I've experienced that. Actually, I think I spoke about it in an earlier episode, where after the awakening kind of rips the lid off of the ability to repress things. It's quite interesting. Anyway, I had this whole experience of about 5-6 months where a lot of hatred came out, and I was shocked. I didn't anger, okay. This was hatred, and nothing in particular. I just could feel hatred around anything, and I had to allow it. And it took a while. I would have episodes, once or twice a week, where I would really kind of feel really strong, and I would just,
What happened? How did you felt it? So what happened after that?
It would usually go through a very similar, for me, and maybe other people experience it differently, but it would arise, I would notice it, and then I would sort of double check and go, wow, is this hatred? I think, well, anger, okay, hatred. And I realized, no, this is hatred. I'm just full of hatred. I just want to burn down the world.
Mhm.
I was so angry at
Yeah,
just life. And so I just felt it. I just allowed it. I didn't do anything. I took my hands off of it. Instead of going in there and messing with it and trying to fix it or tell myself some positive affirmation or do anything. Not at all. Hands off. Don't touch it, but allow it. It's like walking in the rain.
Then what happened?
Then it arose. I experienced it for a certain period of time. The longer I could just allow it and not do anything, it actually became more and more sort of translucent and transparent. It sort of lost its kinetic energy. It actually started to look like a structure to me, like literally. You ever seen these CAD diagrams on a computer where you can look at a building or a car? It felt like that. I experienced it like that, like, oh, it's a structure. And I experienced it like that, and then slowly it would just sort of dissipate on its own without me trying to do anything to it, to get rid of it or anything. And what was left was more consciousness. Each time that happened, I felt more conscious. Like literally, like some dark part of my basement had been cleared out, and there was just, it wasn't a basement anymore. It was part of the house. It had been included. It was remarkable, but it was very uncomfortable. Hatred, I think any of the strong emotions, any of them, are very uncomfortable to experience. But yeah, just to be honest and experience as they are. Let them breathe and heal that way.
When I was a kid, I was a person who had a lot of repressed anger. And if you asked me to be honest about the anger, I would not have been able to, because when you're repressing something so much, you're not aware of it. Consequently, when I went to see Osho in India and learned to do dynamic meditation, in the beginning I had to pretend to scream and yell. And in that pretending, I all of a sudden became actually aware of that this was not pretending, this was actual. This anger, this hurt, and the variety of other emotions that I was playing out in the beginning were actually real. And it was kind of necessary for me to experience them and to express them, not to anybody in particular, that I don't think would have been helpful, but to into a pillow or against the floor or the wall or something in that way. And so it took a while, but as time went on, I became more and more aware of these emotions that arose moment to moment to moment. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of their emotions as they're arising moment to moment to moment. They come in and they immediately go into their mind, or they go into a kind of a comatose, semi-comatose state, and just let them slide by. And in a sense, as you said, create your own unconscious. They're creating unconsciousness at the same time. And I found that to be very true for me. As time went on, I experienced something that Osho also said, and I wasn't completely understanding it when he said it, but he said something that was similar to what I'm about to say. He said that if you allow yourself to experience an emotion fully and allow it to come into you and just through you, as kind of as what you're talking about, where you're aware of it, you're not actually acting it out, but you're just aware of it. And that emotion is what quote unquote is a nice emotion, say it's laughter or happiness or whatever, it is very joyful. And then he said that if you allow yourself to experience an emotion that quote unquote is not nice, that is anger or jealousy or pride or shame or fear, and you really let yourself experience it and let it go through you, that emotion turns into a positive feeling. Okay? And at first it was like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? But as you experience this, first allowing yourself to be aware of these emotions and even having to express them in some fashion. And then finally allowing them and just being with them, that indeed that's what happens. Those emotions you start to see as simply energy. All of them are just simply energy. And they energize you. You feel energized. You feel almost ecstatic by allowing that energy just to flow through you, as if you're kind of a hollow bamboo and it's a kind of conduit that just rides right through. It's electricity that just flows right through you. And then all of a sudden you're free because you don't have to be any particular emotion. I mean, it's all energy. So you don't have to be any particular emotion. So now you're free. You don't have to hold anything back, or you don't have to accentuate anything. You don't have to be anything. You simply allow in that sense. And I found that to be immensely helpful. Immensely helpful. And of course, the more you can do that, the more honest you are with yourself, because then you're no longer afraid of whatever the emotion is. Now, as I went deeper into this, I began to start to see that really as far as I was concerned, as far as I saw, there were really only two emotions. There was love and its various aspects. Happiness is love, and joy is love, and fulfillment is love, and trust is love, and all this is love. And in this fear. And fear, anger is fear, and shame is fear, and guilt is fear, and all these. And guilt is a little different kind of thing, but they're fear. They're fear. And I began to start to see that one of the ways I used to deal with fear was to get angry. Mm-hmm. And it would happen so fast that I wouldn't really notice the fear. The fear would come, and immediately I would go into anger. Right. And it was a way of protecting myself from feeling that fear, because fear itself was vulnerable. It's vulnerable. And anger is power. It's like strength. It's like power. And when I finally got to see that, I mean, really be it, experience it, then I no longer feared fear. Right. And then I didn't have to get angry. I could just be fear. Yeah. But fear is usually the most difficult, just on its own, just because it's so vulnerable.
You're vulnerable.
It's extremely
ego
vulnerable.
Does not like fear.
No, it's like extremely vulnerable. So that was an aha moment for me.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
It was an aha moment for me. And I think that's probably true for all of us. I think as human beings, that is where we're at. And we're always taught, or almost always taught, to repress these emotions in some fashion.
Yeah, one family might repress one type of emotion, another family might repress some other, It's bound to happen.
Yeah. So the honesty or dishonesty we have with ourselves is, in a sense, trying to protect ourselves against something that really we don't need to protect ourselves against.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. That's what. Yeah. When expressing it wouldn't express it on someone, but it still express it. That's why hitting a pillow or hitting the wall, the floor, or yelling or screaming just in the room or whatever.
The forest.
Exactly.
Right.
In that way, you're expressing it, but you're not putting it on someone.
Right.
That's not helpful either. Just throwing at someone.
No, that's harmful.
Then that's extremely harmful. That's what we have in the society today. Is people are screaming at each other. Yeah. It's their fault. It's their fault. Yeah. And in that way, you don't ever see it. It's my emotion. Yes. It's their fault. It's not my emotion.
Right.
Yeah.
And also,
most of the time, some strong emotion like that, or angry at somebody, they're actually just sort of a trigger. They've reminded you of something maybe that's happened unconsciously years and years and years ago, right? Maybe childhood stuff, and it gets triggered. So this person is actually not deserving of all this rage that's happening. That's not helpful. So I like your thing of expression. Sometimes it's necessary, absolutely, or whatever, if you find a safe way to express it. But you can also just feel it. If you're willing to be uncomfortable for a while, it won't last forever. Feels like, oh my God, if I open myself to this fear or anger, that's going to overwhelm me. Well, it will and it won't. It will pass also. It'll be like a storm. Storms have some time. They don't go by in an instant. They sit there and they storm for a while, and then they sort of peter out and they move on. Same with an emotional storm.
Well, that arises, though, and it arose in you, as far as I can see, is because you took responsibility for it. You obviously, we talked about, we had a segment, I think, where we talked about going inward. You were already inward when you did that.
Yeah.
Think about all the people out there who are seeing other people as it's your fault,
Right.
and I'm getting pissed at you.
Yes.
I want to shoot you, or
Yeah.
I want to maim you.
Yeah.
They have not turned inward.
Right.
They are still trying to change that outward thing.
The other guy.
And the outward thing is the cause.
Yes.
And the outward thing is the cure.
Right.
And the truth of the matter is, as we stated in that other episode, the outward thing is illusion, really.
Yeah.
It's not the cause. It's not the cure. It's not going to give you fulfillment.
No. Not going to give you relief from this anger either.
No, it's not going to give you relief from the anger. No. Not going to change those emotions into ecstasy. No.
No.
You're going to just be stuck round and round and round.
Yeah. Repeat.
Never can change the outside, really.
No.
Not really.
No.
Sometimes temporarily, but that doesn't help you.
No.
So you've done that when you've turned inward, and you're also taking responsibility for what is arising within you.
Yeah.
But we have lots of people, like, if that's part of the trip, I believe, it's to do that, to go inward. And then as you go inward, you can start to do these processes. You can be these.
Yeah. Actually, that brings up a very good point I've wanted to touch on, and that is in the sort of common language around meditation, mindfulness and this and that. There's kind of this. It's sold. Be a little harsh here. It's being sold a little bit like, oh, you'll feel calmer, you'll feel more relaxed, your breathing will be calm, your mind will be calm, life is going to be good if you meditate. And I would like to address that's true. All that is true. But it will also, by meditating, what you're doing is you're relaxing the part of the mind that suppresses other parts of the mind. And so then whatever's been suppressed, repressed, will start to bubble up. And many meditators discover that, and they feel confused and freaked out. It's like, well, I've been meditating, it was beautiful in the beginning, oh my God, I got these beautiful spaces. And then I continued, and after a while, it was like hell. I mean, I would sit down and, whatever, all these difficult emotions would come up. And that's where a teacher can be very handy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring that to your teacher, and they'll help you basically realize that that's normal. And that that's okay. And what you're doing is you're actually starting to heal, starting to let these repressed emotions come up. And like you said, doing dynamic meditation, screaming into a pillow or crying or whatever it is, somehow just to allow these emotions to have space. But I just wanted to address that point, that meditation doesn't lead to just beautiful spaces. It can lead to beautiful spaces, and it will, but it's also, it opens everything. It opens your mind, and whatever is there will start to bubble up, looking to be included, looking to be included back into all of you. And so it can be also challenging, but not to be put off, because it's like you said, you pass through these difficult emotions and they turn into ecstasy. So
Beautiful, beautiful said.